So, my dear comrades, welcome to yet another video. So, I already tackled introduction to biology. I've tackled the cell. Now, I'm going to tackle cell physiology. After covering the cell, the time now is right to cover cell physiology. A minute, guys. Just a minute. So, guys, welcome to today's lesson. Okay, I was saying today I'm going to tackle cell physiology, and as usual, I will start with the lesson plan. Then, after that, I will come to the students' notes. So, the lesson plan is just a guide to the teacher so that the teacher can teach this lesson effectively. So, guys, welcome to cell physiology lesson plan. So, in the lesson plan, as usual, you have the age of the runners in this topic, and the age is 11 to 14, and the lesson overview will be topic is cell physiology, grade level, junior secondary, and the duration it will take is 60 minutes, Objectives: understand the process of diffusion and osmosis. Second one is learn about active transport and its importance. And then we will end up with exploring enzyme activity and its functions. The reference books for teaching cell physiology to junior secondary students. These reference books will provide comprehensive coverage of cell physiology for junior secondary students, focusing on essential processes such as diffusion, osmosis, active transport, and enzyme activity. They include theoretical explanations, practical activities, and real-life applications to enhance student understanding and engagement. So guys, I recommend you go and refer to these reference books. So the Kenyan reference book, and as a teacher you know, is the Secondary Biology Form 1 students book. The publisher is Kenya Literature Bureau, or KLB. Chapter is the cell all right. So what here I mean is chapter 4 is on the cell, and you be required to look at introduction to cell structure and function, overview of the cell and its components before you teach cell physiology. Cell physiology occurs in chapter 5, where section 5.1 is diffusion and osmosis, where you have definition and importance of diffusion, detailed explanation of osmosis with examples and then practical activities on diffusion and osmosis. Section 5.2 is active transport, diffusion and the significance of active transport, examples of active transport in cells, and then you have comparison between passive transport, which is diffusion and osmosis, and active transport. So we have two types of transport in cells. Passive transport, which is taken care of by diffusion and osmosis, and then we have active transport. Section 5.3 of that chapter, you have the enzyme activity, introduction to enzymes and biological catalysts, the mechanism of enzyme action, where you have the substrate, active site, and enzyme substrate complex. And then you end up by having the factors affecting enzyme activity like temperature, pH, and the substrate concentration. International reference book, we have the Biology for Cambridge Secondary 1. The authors are Pam Lange, Richard Fosbury, and Fullick. The publisher is Oxford University Press. The relevant chapters and sections include Chapter 2, which covers the cell and organisms. Section 1 with cell structure, overview of cell types and their structures, introduction to cell organelles and their functions. As a background, Chapter 3 is movement of substances in and out of cells, where you have section 3.1, you have diffusion, definition and examples of diffusion, importance of diffusion in biological system, and practical activities to observe diffusion. Continuation, movement of substances in and out of cell, diffusion, definition and examples of diffusion, importance of diffusion in biological processes, and practical activities. Section 3.2 is osmosis, definition and detailed explanation of osmosis, the role of osmosis in maintaining cell turgor and volume, and then you have practical experiments demonstrating osmosis. Section 3.3 is active transport, definition and significance of active transport in cells, examples of active transport mechanisms like the sodium, potassium pump, and the comparison between active transport with the diffusion and osmosis. Chapter 4, Enzymes. 4.1 section, Introduction to Enzymes. You have the definition and function of enzymes as biological catalysts, and then you have the structure of the enzymes and the concept of active site. Section 4.2 is how enzymes work, the enzyme substrate complex and the catalytic cycle, factors affecting enzyme activity, temperature, pH, substrate concentration, and then practical activities to observe enzyme reactions. Section 3, Enzymes in Daily Life, application of enzymes in industry and medicine, case studies, and examples of enzyme use. Materials needed in this lesson will be whiteboard and markers, projector and computer for slides for those who can afford, handouts with diagrams and worksheets, materials for experiments, e.g. food coloring, water, potato slices, salt, hydrogen peroxide, potatoes, straw cleaver, beakers, droppers, and other lab equipment. Lesson structure, introduction 10 minutes, where you do the greeting and then you take the attendance, welcoming the students and the reason to the taking of the attendance. Then you have engagement activity where you ask students if they have ever wondered how nutrients get into cells, or how cells get rid of waste, discussed just briefly. Lesson objectives outline the key points that will be covered in the lesson: diffusion, osmosis, active transport, and enzyme activity. Direct instruction taking 20 minutes, definition of the cell physiology. Explain that cell physiology is the study of how cells function, including the movement of substances in and out of cells and the role of enzymes. Diffusion, movement of molecules from an area of high concentration to an area of lower concentration. You give the example there, you show a diagram and briefly explain the process of oxygen entering cells and carbon dioxide leaving cells. We no longer call it carbon dioxide, we call it carbon dioxide. Osmosis, still in the direct instruction, is definition, movement of water molecules through a selectively permeable membrane from an area of low solute concentration to an area of high solute concentration. Give an example, use a diagram to illustrate water absorption by plants, roots. Active transport definition is movement of molecules across a cell membrane from a region of lower concentration to a region of higher concentration using energy in the form of ATP. So you give an example, the sodium-potassium pump with a diagram. Enzyme activity definition. Enzymes are biological catalysts that speed up chemical reactions in cells without being consumed. How enzymes work? Describe the enzyme substrate complex, active site, and product formation. And then you go to factors affecting enzyme activity, discuss temperature, pH, and substrate concentration with examples. Mwalimu. So, guided practice, 15 minutes. My colleague, you have diffusion experiment. Demonstrate diffusion by adding food coloring to water and observing how it spreads. Osmosis experiment, use potato slices in salt water and fresh water to demonstrate osmosis. Observe changes in texture and size. Enzyme activity experiment, show enzyme activity by using catalase in potatoes or liver to break down hydrogen peroxide. Observe the release of oxygen bubbles. Independent practice takes 10 minutes. You give them a worksheet. Distribute a worksheet with questions on definitions, examples, and explanation of diffusion, osmosis, active transport, and enzyme activity. Include diagrams for labeling and short answer questions to reinforce learning. To conclude your lesson, mwalimu, or mwalimu means teacher. Mwalimu is Kiswahili. So, mwalimu, to conclude, will take 5 minutes where you recap. Summarize the key points covered in the lesson. Highlight the importance of each process in maintaining cellular functions. Then you have the questions. Open the floor for any final questions or comments. And then you give the homework assignment. You ask students to write a short paragraph on the importance of enzymes in daily life, providing examples of enzyme activity. Assessment. Formative, observe during experiments and class discussions. Summative, evaluate the worksheet and the homework assignment. For your learners, for advanced ones, provide additional reading materials on complex enzyme mechanisms and active transport processes. For the ones who need more assistance, offer one-on-one support during the worksheet activity and simplify explanation if necessary. All right? That one struggling students, okay? They are still there, but they are not struggling as such. but you can assist them. They are just, and we cannot call them slow runners because that would be demoralizing them. Extension activity: plan a follow-up lesson with more advanced experiments involving enzyme activity and the cellular transport mechanisms. The reflection: after the lesson, reflect on what went well and what could be improved. Gather feedback from students to understand their perspectives and make necessary adjustments for future lessons. This lesson plan, my colleague teacher, provides a structured approach to teaching self-physiology to junior secondary students, focusing on essential processes such as diffusion, osmosis, active transport, and enzyme activity. The mix of direct instructions, hands-on experiments, and interactive activities aims to engage students and reinforce their understanding of key concepts. There comes the end of the lesson plan for the teachers. I hope to assist you as a teacher. Remember, for students, if they look at it, they should know that this is for the teacher, because right now I want to bring the lesson notes, which I am presuming students take as the teacher teaches the lesson. All right? So welcome to the lesson notes for the students. Goodbye to the lesson plan for my dear colleague teachers.